I'm going to ring us to order with the Himalayan tea bell of my daughter. All right, Rotarians, welcome. But we're getting pretty good at it. We're getting almost as good at it as our live meetings. I want to welcome everyone. Remember that we are on Zoom. Your microphones are muted by Valerie, our ringmaster. So if you want to talk, raise your hand and Valerie will recognize you and unmute you. But otherwise, if your dog barks in the background, it's okay. So with that, let me call on Charles Edwards for our invocation and the pledge.
Thank you, President Jim. Today, I'm going to talk about perseverance, which I think we need a lot of, considering this episode we're going through doesn't seem to end. Winston Churchill once wrote, "Continuous effort, not strength or intelligence, is the key to unlocking our potential." He also said that a positive thinker sees the invisible, feels the intangible, and achieves the impossible. To not persevere is to stall, to stop, to halt, to end. COVID-19 is a test of our will, of our community, and of our humanity. Never compromise your will to survive as you sew the terms of your life with the fabric of your destiny. The journey continues right here and everywhere. Thank you. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. And before we introduce our numerous guests, just another gentle reminder, please complete the membership survey. There's only been about a third of us who have done this, actually less than a third. This is important for the club going forward. There are questions and it takes less than 10 minutes to complete the survey, but even address the issue which we're under right now of no face-to-face in-person meetings. So please complete that survey. Otherwise, as has been suggested, I shall invoke being judge, jury, and executioner, and it won't be a happy place to be. So with that nice, friendly statement, I'm sorry, I've got to find the gallery view, but in looking through, Fred, I'm going to introduce you at the end so you can give us some information about the club, if that's all right. I see you. Van Sapp from Southeast Raleigh has joined us. Welcome, Van.
Welcome, Van.
Trying to see who else is here.
Charles, I have a guest, friend and neighbor, Marcia Hartwig.
Great. Welcome. And I know I've probably missed Maria.
I believe Jonica Rowland is on too.
Yeah, Jonica from Southeast Raleigh.
Yeah. Gwen, see you. Welcome. This is great. This is fantastic. If I missed anybody else, and if I have, I apologize. I'm sorry, I don't know who are on the phone numbers. All I have are a series of phone numbers. But
we also have Dr. Lumpkin today, who's going to be inducted.
I recognized her, Linda.
Okay.
All right. So, Fred, go back to you, and if you can give us an update on what's happening at the club, that'd be great.
Is Fred unmuted?
No, he's still not connected.
Okay, we'll come back to that. I know he's planning to be on today because he's very interested to hear our speaker.
His
And,
name is in the list, but he's not showing as having a microphone, so he might not have authorized his computer for audio.
Oh, got it. Okay. Well, if he can raise it in at some point, if he's able, we'll get that. And if not this meeting, then the next one. So just as a reminder to everyone, we will not be meeting next Monday in recognition of Memorial Day. We will not be meeting next Monday. But the following Monday, June the 1st, we'll be meeting, and we have a very special speaker, and that's our own Mark Davis. Mark Davis, our own member who is a justice on the North Carolina Supreme Court, will be speaking about his new book on the Exum Court. It's going to be really interesting, and I know everyone will want to tune in for that one. And then the following Monday, we have Michael Walden. He's a PhD, distinguished professor of economics at North Carolina State University. He's a frequent writer. He's written books and many articles, and he's a frequent speaker on economics matters on television and radio. And he's going to talk to us about the economic outlook for Raleigh, North Carolina, and the nation, which will be very timely in light of the COVID situation. So we've got great meetings coming up and more beyond that, but those are just the two I'll flag for right now. So a few other announcements. Well, first, I'll just announce, as usual, Cart Bucket and Happy Dollars. So let me just, to save time today, because we got a full program, if you can make a donation in any amount to our Cart Bucket Coins for Alzheimer's Research Trust. We're doing great in collecting spare change and dollars, and all you have to do is raise your hand in chat or contact Linda, and she'll bill you on your next statement for whatever amount you wish to contribute to the Cart Bucket, and also for Happy Dollars. But just in the interest of time today, I wanted to move along on that. Second thing I wanted to mention is please remember to pay those dues. We've got a balanced budget that we've recently adopted, but it is a lean and tight balanced budget. And we need everybody to send in those quarterly dues payments, and we really appreciate it. We've had a great response so far. Most people have sent in their dues, and we just ask that those who've not, so everything's disrupted by COVID, we understand, but if you can get those into Linda, that would be great. Then I just want to remind everybody that, we're continuing service. People are doing service in their neighborhoods. People are doing service through their churches, and our club, through its foundation, has made donations of $1,000 each to UNC Rex Healthcare Foundation, the Salvation Army, the Dementia Alliance, and the Food Bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina. And further, we've made our members individually have contributed to those causes as well. And in addition to the Wake Smiles, we're continuing our support both through members individually and our foundation to Wake Smiles. So we're doing a great job with service, and Gina is going to give a more fulsome report on service, both current and planned, during her report. So now I will call upon Christy for membership.
All right. Hello, everyone. I have a couple quick announcements. First off, we have a first reading today for a potential new member, Fred Sturhan. And as Jim and Charles were pointing out, he is present on our Zoom call today. So we're excited to have him here and have him as a potential new member. Like I said, he's a general manager of the City Club of Raleigh. And I know many of you are acquainted with him already. Any questions or comments, send them my way. And secondly, I wanted to give you all a reminder about our next virtual social. It's going to be next Thursday, the 28th at 5:30 p.m. So same night as our typical fifth meeting. We had one last month. It was really fun. I don't know if anyone else is working from home and doesn't live with anyone. It's really great to just get together, even virtually, and have a beverage of choice via Zoom. for a little hour. So hope all of y'all tune in. It'll be fun. We'll send the link out next week. And then lastly, very exciting, we're inducting a new member today, Dr. Maria Lumpkin. I think we're gonna highlight her video screen here in a minute. All right.
Hi.
Perfect. Fellow Rotarians, it is my privilege and pleasure today to welcome into membership Dr. Maria Lumpkin, Interim President of St. Augustine's University. Dr. Lumpkin is sponsored by Jim Dorsett. Her application has been reviewed and approved in accordance with our club constitution and bylaws. Dr. Lumpkin, we now will proceed to admit you into membership into the Rotary Club of Raleigh and to the friendship of Rotary throughout the world. The ideal of Rotary is service, as our principal motto is service above self. And the object of this club is to encourage and foster this ideal as a basis of worthy enterprise. We expect you to share in this effort. You've been approved for membership because we believe that you would be a worthy representative and that you are interested in the ideals of Rotary and willing to share in translating these ideals into action. You have agreed to accept the obligation of membership in this club and to obey this club's constitution and bylaws. At this time, I now have the pleasure of asking Van Sapp, Dean of the School of Business at St. Augustine's University, to pin the Rotary emblem on Dr. Lumpkin. Perfect. We hope you will wear your pin with pride. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Raleigh and fellow Rotarians. Please give a virtual round of applause and welcome our newest member, Dr. Maria Lumpkin. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you.
All right. So I just want to say, add to what Christy said, how pleased we are to have Dr. Lumpkin as a new member. I attended a virtual meeting of the new Southeast Raleigh Rotary Club, and Dr. Lumpkin was the speaker, and I'm telling you, she is a fantastic speaker. I remember a number of things that I learned from her during her talk, but one of the things I remember, just an interesting factoid, is that the first students at St. Augustine's University quarried the first stones that were laid as the cornerstones on the campus in 1867. And we're just very fortunate to have Dr. Lumpkin as a new member of our club, and so pleased that you're here with us today, and thank you for joining us. And we're looking forward to Fred Sturhan, General Manager of City Club Raleigh, coming in a few weeks. So let's see. Now let's go to Gina for an update on service.
Hello, everyone. Dr. Lumpkin, very excited to have you a part of the Rotary Club of Raleigh. How exciting to have a virtual pinning. So I really loved seeing that. Also, so happy about all of the people that are attending by Zoom. Really think that that is great. Talking about Zoom, we had a great service committee meeting on Thursday where we really got to think about where service is going for our club within this next couple of years, as well as the immediate future. So I am composing my notes, and we'll be able to give a board meeting kind of recap on that, as well as hopefully a recap to the chapter somewhat soon. I will be looking for leaders to chair different service events, but thank you so much for everybody who attended that service committee meeting. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Okay, next slide. All right, guys. So right now, it is time, there's still social distancing, and we aren't able to really kind of go out as a group, as a chapter, different service organizations, just because they don't offer more than having 10 people and or different kind of constraints, either personal and or business-wide, that we can't go out. But that doesn't mean that you can't do things at home, cleaning up your neighborhood, buying groceries for people that may be in need of it, and donating blood. So one of our partners, UNC Rex, they part of their website, they are kind of have an authorized kind of listing of who to go to donate blood. So blood connections, when you donate blood, you also get antibody testing at no cost. So that is a nice value add. Valerie went today, so I want to give out a shout out to her. I'll be going June 6th because I have to wait so many weeks from the last time I gave blood. But this is a great opportunity. I'm really going to charge all of you guys for May and June, if we can get 10 members. So Valerie and I are already 2, so maybe 8 more members to give blood. That will be a really good service project that we can do remotely. So hopefully, if you guys can put in the comments that you're willing to donate, I would really appreciate it. Test that out, and also empower yourself with knowledge to know if you actually had COVID maybe earlier in the year. All right, next slide. All right, so our virtual food drive, again, total raise. It hasn't changed anything from last week unless you guys have sent in money, maybe, I don't know, offline, but we're still at $2,642. And that is also with the foundation donation of $1,000. So great job, guys. Keep it going. It's only less than $400 more until we reach $3,000. Thank you guys so much for your time. And again, really want you to go donate blood, and hoping that maybe next month I'll be able to have at least one in-service project for us to attend. Have a great day.
All right, Gina, thank you so much for that report. Our members are doing a lot in this time. Giving blood is a great thing to do. And wouldn't it be great to know that you had the antibodies and didn't have to worry so much about coronavirus? So a great thing to do, to donate blood at this time. So Mark Hackett, do you have a quick update for us on the Southeast Raleigh Club?
Hey, Jim. I wasn't able to attend last week's meeting, so I'd ask either Valerie or Eric to give an update, but we have at least 4 members of the Southeast Club on this call, so if it's okay.
Yeah, why don't we let if Van is on, I believe Van is on, maybe he can give a quick update.
Yeah, Van is the treasurer and on the board, so if Van is, I know he's maybe not prepared, but just an update.
Van is always prepared, in my experience.
I am. We've had a good series of meetings, and all of them have been focused on our 3 areas of service. And we've had a lot in the housing, homelessness. Hold on one second. So,
You want to just turn yours off? We can share.
okay, all right. So we've been doing a lot in terms of homelessness, and we've been doing some in youth leadership. When Dr. Lumpkin came over several weeks ago, she told us about a laptop program that St. Augustine's University was doing, and we've had probably 6 or 7 of our members contribute to that. So we're almost up to $2,000 with the small group that we have, and this Tuesday will be our first social meeting. So you guys are all welcome to join. This will be a nice, fun, relaxing meeting, and bring your beverage.
Great, thanks so much, Van. Yeah, we're so excited about the Southeast Raleigh Club. They're growing, they are adding members. They're meeting weekly. They've had great programs, incredible speakers on their areas of focus, and they're doing service, and we're planning a joint day of service together as soon as we can get back out and join forces to work on an urban park together. So we're really, really looking forward to that. So Fred Stairhan, if you can give us just a couple minutes on City Club Raleigh, if you're able to to join by audio.
Okay, can you hear me this time, Jim?
Yes, yes.
Well, sorry about that. I actually had to log off and get back on. I'm not sure what the issue was, but sorry about that. My apologies to the group. Just as a brief rundown, as with most restaurants, bars, people in our industry, we're somewhat in a holding pattern here until we hear more from the governor or the county as far as when we can open, what allowable restrictions there will be once we do. Evidently, going into phase 2, which I think is scheduled right around the 22nd of the month, is our first opportunity that maybe there will be a little bit of a release of our industry to be able to start opening again. If that occurs, we're probably going to be right around June 1st here at the club. That's been our target date, at least internally, for a while. But regardless of the actual date, we'll see if they say up 50% occupancy, 25%, if it's done by square footage, amount of people we can have in the club at one time, lots of variables. We're preparing for each and every one of those, we hope. But once we get open and we know the parameters, some great announcements and start hopefully to see our members back in and you all for your Monday luncheons. And we're spending a lot of time right now on sanitary issues and scrubbing down just about everything. A lot of training with the staff to get them prepared on how to present what we need to do to keep everyone safe, including the staff and anyone who comes through the door. So lots of policies and directives being put down by Club Corps that they're imposing on all 200 plus clubs that they have across the nation. It's a very thorough program. We think we're going to be very safe. As a matter of fact, we know we will. So everything we're doing is highly geared towards safety, and we're going to take the high road and be very conservative. Regardless of what we're told we can open, we might cut just below that anyway and see where things go. So we had early on furloughed about 60 of our 65 staff members. We say furlough, but actually they were put on unpaid time off. So that way we could keep them on the payroll. They wouldn't lose their tenure or their benefits. So we thought that was a pretty good for Club Corps to step up and allow us to do that. So we'll probably start bringing back a few employees as early as the end of this week, early part of next week. But I'll tell you, it's probably going to be, I'd say a good year or 6 months at least before we're up to some sort of capacity issue. But we're excited to get open. We're looking forward to coming up with some new creative ideas to allow everybody to come in the door. And so that's where we're standing. And I'll certainly keep you posted as we get closer.
Fred, thank you so much for that interesting report and hopeful report. And needless to say, our members are looking forward to getting back to City Club Raleigh, where we can gather in person and enjoy a first-class meal. And also, we're excited about your application to join us as a member. And we're looking forward to inducting you.
Well, I appreciate that. It would certainly be an honor, and I look forward to it and be an honor. So thank you.
Thank you. And let me just recognize a few birthdays. So our own Linda Monaghan has a birthday this month on the 23rd. I think she's hitting the big 40. So everybody,
it's 23.
Okay, all right. So we're excited about that. Paul Corsa on the 30th. And we've got some significant anniversaries this month too. Bill and Sally McLaurin on the 19th. Tomorrow, and this is their 47th. So Sally is a very strong woman, and we're excited for Bill and Sally. Mark and Marcia Davis have an anniversary on the 21st of this month, and Sam and Lou McNary on the 22nd. Dave and Lee Ammons on the 24th, and this is 34 years for them. Katie and Brian Mullen on the 25th, 29 years for them. Tom and Leslie Packer, Treasurer Tom, on the 28th of this month. And finally, Bill and Mary Moss on the 29th. Mary Moss, past president, 38 years married to my law partner, Bill Moss. So congratulations to them as well. And now I'd like to recognize Reagan Weaver to introduce a distinguished public servant and a friend to many members of this club. Reagan?
Am I being heard?
Yes.
Yeah. Our speaker today is Rufus Edmisten, who served 10 years as the Attorney General for North Carolina and 7 years as the North Carolina Secretary of State. After he lost the 1984 race for governor to Jim Martin, he went into the private practice of law with me for 4 years. Rufus's book, That's Rufus, which is, I don't know if you, well, you see the slide up, is a frank and candid recounting of a farm boy's upbringing in the 40s and the 50s in a family of 6 children in the mountains of North Carolina. And it's also a multifaceted experience in national as well as state politics that the book describes. His stories are classic. My favorite from his childhood was when he borrowed without permission his father's state-issued car and revolver and proceeded to drive the car into a ditch. That's a story that perhaps he'll share with you. After graduating from Carolina, he went to Washington, D.C., working for Sam Ervin. And while he worked for Ervin, he attended law school at night. Sam Ervin, most of you know, became the chair of the U.S. Senate's committee to investigate the break-in at the Watergate office complex. Rufus has had a very full political life and a successful 20+ years as a lobbyist. He's also faced down a near-fatal disease. He continues to lobby, but he loves spending time in his 2.5-acre garden. He heads up a foundation as well to send kids to college. He's a lasting and special friend who is humble, honest, and one of the most generous people I know. I give you my friend, Rufus Edmisten.
Well, Reagan, in the words of Senator Ervin, may the recording angel drop a tear and blot out the iniquity in your very eloquent prevarication on my behalf. In other words, thanks for fibbing a little bit, but I'll say this about Reagan Weaver. I've never met a person who is more generous than Reagan himself, and who is unselfish, who listens to people, and who you couldn't have asked for a better law partner. Now, he did study things a little bit too much. Sometimes I'd say, Reagan, let's get on with it. But he wanted everything to be just right, and that's what you want in a good lawyer. And his dear wife, Ardith, and he's a proud grandfather of 2 children. They're grandparents of 2 children now, and just a super individual, and I feel very honored to be introduced by my friend Reagan. Now, let me say a couple words about my friend Jim. If there was ever a Southern gentleman, it's Jim Dorsett. And his father he's very much like his father, which I think is a compliment to you, Jim, that I would say that. I was looking forward to going to the City Club, where I'm a member and where he is the chairman of the president of the Board of Governors of the City Club, because that wonderful buffet there, but we didn't get to. But I've noticed something about Jim when he's there. He's sort of a buffet aficionado, and he has this strange habit of not being able to make up his mind. It sort of reminds me of what to pick out and what to have. Reminds me of this nudist wedding, and you can imagine how they were dressed at a nudist wedding, all lined up, the groomsmen and the ladies, and the minister asked the lady getting married, she said, would you have this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? And she looked down the line and said, no, I'll take that one. That's sort of like Jim at the buffet line. He can't make up his mind, but she sure made up her mind. So I'm glad to be around Jim Dorsett anytime, anywhere, because he's a super individual. And let me say a couple words about Rotary. Reagan mentioned that I ran for governor. Well, that wasn't a good year. It just wasn't a good year. Ronald Reagan took the state by about 63%, and he's wiped away me and Jim Hunt. But I've grown very humbled by that. And still, when you when you run for governor and you don't win, strange things happen to you. Well, last year at the state fair, I was out there and this lady approached me and she said, are you who I think you are? Well, that's sort of a dangerous question. I said, well, who might you think I am? She says, ain't you Rufus? I said, well, yes. She said, well, hell, I thought you were dead. So I'm glad to be invited anywhere, anytime, under any circumstances to gather, even if it's on Zoom. And I'm not accustomed to Zoom because I move around too much. But to tell you that Rotary is one of my favorite public service clubs. I went to 67 Rotary clubs when I ran for governor. That ought to tell you something. The only time I screwed up one time, I went to Charlotte, North Carolina for a Kiwanis club. I've been going to so many Rotary clubs. I got up before the Kiwanis club and I said, it's so fine to be here and wonderful to be with you Rotarians. Well, the speaker, the president of the Kiwanis club beside me kicked me so badly, I thought I'd never get over it. And so I petitioned myself, calm it down when you're talking about another public service club. They're not all Rotaries, and they may not be quite as good, but they're not all Rotary clubs. Let me tell you something that happened 47 years ago on one of the hottest, most humid days that you could dream of in Washington, D.C. As you can see from that picture there, I left the Capitol in the midst of a group of policemen to do something that had never been done before. That was to deliver a subpoena on President Richard Nixon from the Senate Watergate Committee. No committee of the Congress had ever delivered a subpoena before on a sitting president. You just didn't do things like that. We proceeded down Pennsylvania Avenue at a slow pace, and it seemed as though the waters opened up like sort of the Red Sea opening up in the Bible. We got to the White House, and there I delivered the subpoena and did a little mischievous thing while I was at it. Urban used to carry one of those little pocket constitutions, and I think Reagan remembers that I had one in the office, a little blue pocket constitution of the United States of America. And I had stuck one in the right hand of my pocket. And when I arrived down there, I served the subpoena in all the official ways and gave the buzzwords about what you do to serve a subpoena. And then I whipped out that Constitution and I said, I heard it said that you might need one of these down here too. Well, it went over pretty well with the folks there. They didn't kick me out of the White House, but it was a momentous occasion. And therein set in motion some very, very humbling events in American history. The founding fathers were pretty wise people, you know, Jim. They knew what they were doing. They had studied the ancient philosophers, and they knew that we had to have a system of checks and balances. And they knew that they had to have separation of powers, but you will notice that nowhere in the Constitution does it mention the word or the phrase separation of powers. But just think of what's happening today, the fusses and the conflicts that are going on today. Watergate is not unique. Every president since way on back, in fact, I just saw a part on Theodore Roosevelt, as some of you saw on public TV, about he even went and established tens of millions of forests of wild wilderness without anybody having any notion of whether he had the right to do it or not. So there's always a push and pull on the part of the executive branch and the congressional branch, and sometimes the judicial branch. Well, the founding fathers knew this would happen, and that's why they had distinct duties that flowed with each department, so that each could ride herd over the other branch of government. And that is also embodied in our North Carolina Constitution, which has a specific phrase that says that the powers of the government shall remain separate and apart forever. Well, we have a tug and war here at times between the governor and the executive branch and the legislative branch. But I'm happy to say that we've seen it done well during the COVID pandemic, with both sides reaching out to try to do their best to get along. Now, Watergate occurred because people got selfish. They got greedy, and my contention is that Watergate occurred by people that knew nothing about government. Now, Richard Nixon knew a lot about government. In fact, he had studied government all of his life and knew it, but he surrounded himself with people that were very, very shy of being well-grounded in governmental knowledge. Nobody in their right mind, in my opinion, would ever break into a building to try to find dirt on somebody. All the times I ran for public office, which the total was a total of 11 times statewide, both primaries and general elections, I never had anything in my office that was worth a hoot that I wouldn't care to give up. I just don't understand the mentality. Well, that was a part of the Nixon White House, where he had a bunch of people around him that did not know how to govern. And in fact, I have often said, and Reagan remembers this, that Richard Nixon would have probably gone down in history as one of the great presidents had it not been for this foolishness of Watergate. Well, I'm contending that we have the makings of a Watergate today in our federal government. You have a very strong-willed president, unusual president. I'm not being critical. I'm trying to do the Rotarian way of, is it all beneficial to all concerned? I'm just saying that we have a very strong-willed president. You have a Democratic Party that thinks he's wrong, and you have a compliant Senate. And the president tests the boundaries of separation of powers every single day. And we're headed towards some court decisions, which I think will need to be clarified. So separation of powers is never ending. Lyndon Johnson abused it terribly all the time. Every president you had is going to stretch it to the limit, and it's the nature of the beast of separation of powers that each executive officer would stretch it to the limit. And so we've got to learn to cross the aisle and reach down and listen to the other side. I don't know exactly how things are going to turn out and how we're doing. And my boss, Senator Ervin, was a wonderful man to work for. He would never let us say that we worked for him. Sam Ervin said that we worked with him, and he was such a gentleman. He was so knowledgeable, and I've often said that I was the luckiest guy in the world to get to work with Senator Sam Ervin. And the reason that Watergate worked and was one of the few governmental exercises of separation of powers that did work was because Senator Ervin and Senator Baker both said that it will work. They willed it from the very beginning that it would work. And it went on to cause the downfall of a president. And I don't think Senator Ervin's been given enough credit all these years for all he did. And I'm so happy that I got to work with him. And I've admired him as my most admired person in public life for all these years, and just wish we had more Sam Ervins. And Reagan has heard me many times talk about the personal times I had with Senator Ervin, traveling with him. When you travel with a man for 10 years, you drive him, you eat with him, you sleep with him. I remember one time we were out campaigning in 1968, and we were down around Pittsburgh, North Carolina, and somehow his secretary had failed to make provisions for the night for us. So there was an old hotel down there at that time called the Blair Hotel, and many of you have been to Pittsburgh, you'll know where I'm talking about. It's got gift shops in the bottom, next to the circle there, the Blair Hotel. And the attendant said, well, we ain't got but one room and one bed. Now, I'm not accustomed to sleeping with God, so this worried me to death. You have never seen such a person in your life being scared plumb out of his wits. It meant nothing to Ervin that we were going to be sleeping together in the same bed. Well, I put half of my rear on the bed, half on the floor, and tried to prop myself up with my knees and my legs. And here would come Senator Urban rolling over with his adenoids rolling and snorting away with his snoring. And I thought, oh my God, how can I sleep with God anymore? So I got up, went into the little tiny bathroom, took a blanket out of the excess, the little closet, put it in the bathtub and slept there until morning. So I refer to that as my sleeping with God night. Now, separation of powers is only going to work, though, if people understand what the principles are. And the principles are that you give and take, and that one branch of the government can get out of hand. In fact, in North Carolina right now, most of the things are being decided by our courts. I think that many times all the redistricting plans, we're having a lot of court interference. In America today, so much is thrust upon the court to decide between the Congress and the executive branch. So you can even have the courts that get too fancy for their pants. Now, let's move on to this little book that you mentioned a while ago, Reagan. I'm very proud of the book. It took 2.5 years to write it, with an hour here and an hour there. And I tried to be honest in it. And I have a little favorite story that Reagan mentioned a while ago in the book. I was a boy growing up on the farm, one of 5 boys and 1 girl. My father was a wildlife protector, and I was so proud of him, so very proud of him. He had this nice, beautiful green uniform, and I just loved it because he would walk in all of his majesty. Well, one night he and my mother went to a PTA meeting or some sort of a public meeting, and I decided I was going to be a wildlife protector. I was 13 years old. So I went into the closet. I got down his uniform. I put it on. I rolled half the legs were far too long. I rolled them up. I put newspaper in the hat to put it on. I strapped on the badge and the gun, and I was ready to go get me some violators. So I proceeded out to the state car. I jumped in that car, turned the motor on, backed out of the driveway, and headed up the road. Well, about 20 seconds later, I landed in the ditch. And I thought, oh my God, what is going to happen to me? I'm a dead man. I could see them crying over my casket. Oh, poor Rufus, he was a good boy, but he just violated the one rule you can't do. You can't steal Daddy's state car. Well, Providence shone on me that night. Here came around the road on this dirt gravel road, our neighbor Bill Gregg driving a Dr. Pepper truck. He saw me and he said, "You little SHI, what are you doing there? You look foolish. You know how you look at that thing? Your daddy's going to kill you." I said, "I know he's going to kill me. I know it anyway." And I just knew it. And I said, "But Bill, if you get me out of this fix, I will plow your garden the rest of my life. I'll mow your yard. I'll be your indentured servant," as if he would know what that meant. He said, "You stay right there and I'll get right back." He drove up the road, came back with a logging chain, pulled me out of the ditch, and I was so frightened that I said, "Please park the car." Now here it was, not scratched up, but muddy. What was I going to do? I noticed that Mama had a fire hose over there, not a fire hose, a watering hose. And I washed the car down. I thought, I've got to tell my daddy when he comes that there's something I'm doing with that car wash dripping there. And I decided, well, Daddy, they drove up just in a matter of time. And he said, "What's that car doing dripping all that water?" And I said, "Well, Daddy, I decided to wash the car for you." In the meantime, I'd taken that ridiculous uniform off, tried to put it back. And I did not tell my daddy until I was running for governor at a wildlife meeting in Winston-Salem some 20-some years later that I had done that, and he laughed and laughed, and I have a suspicion that my mother knew it the whole time. How about those mothers? Speaking of my mama, she was quite a character, Reagan can tell you. And I have another little quaint story before we end this thing up. One time I got to know Bill Clinton because when he was Attorney General of Arkansas, I was Attorney General here, and we got to be buddies. And when I was the president of the Secretaries of State, he invited me to come to the White House and spend the night. And that was that's quite a chapter in the book, by the way. You want to get this book and read it while you're in these COVID-19 days to get a few chuckles here and there. And we spent the night at in the Lincoln bedroom, which is just something that the whole chapter on it in the book, that'll tell you how a young boy from the country felt sleeping in the Lincoln bedroom of all things. Well, about 2 weeks later, my dear father died, and the president had remembered, somebody told the president my father had died. So the phone rang in my mother's mountain home, where there was still a dial telephone, by the way. A dial telephone, you know, ring, 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 a dial telephone. And said the president will call at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So lo and behold, we gathered the family around, and the most powerful man in the world called at 4 o'clock. And he said, well, Rufus, I'm glad to have you and your wife at the White House with me and enjoyed it. And we had a little chat, and I thanked him. And I said, Mama, you want to speak to the president? She said, yes, I do. And she said, hello, Mr. President. I want to thank you for letting my boy Rufus, his wife, spend the night with you, just like I'd gone out the street to spend the night with cousin Charles Michael. And she said, I want to thank you for also making my other boy a U.S. Marshal. And they chatted a little bit, and all of a sudden there came a knock on the door, knock, knock, knock on the front door. Well, you can imagine a country home, and people coming, bringing things, and said, Aunt Nell, this is cousin Ruby Michael. I got a pie, cherry pie. Mama said to the president, goodbye, Mr. President. I got to go. Ruby Michael's at the door of the pie. She slammed the phone down, and I barely caught it just in time to say, Mr. President, I'm so sorry my mama hung up on you. He said, oh, that'd be just something like my mother would have done. And about 2 days later, I said to Mama, I said, Mama, you hung up on the President of the United States of America, the most powerful man in the world. She said, well, Ruby Michael was at the door with a cherry pie. She said it all. No more explanation needed. It was that simple. She was at the door of the cherry pie, and she had to go get the cherry pie. Let me tell you some things I've learned throughout the book that I mentioned in the book, and that is some advice that I've kept a little list of things that I believe are essential to having a good life. One is that you should choose your own friends. Now you stop and think about that a minute. How many times have you had someone thrust themselves off on you? You didn't really want them to be your friend. It normally turns out to be a disaster when you don't choose your own friends. For those people you want to hold dear, you choose your own friends and you'll be much better off. Number two, practice empathy. Listen to the other side. I've tried to do that in my role as Attorney General and Secretary of State, and as a practicing lobbyist attorney for 10 years, 20 years. If you only listen to people, they might just be right. And the third one, very important too, thank those who helped you get where you are. There's always somebody in your life, that teacher, that somebody that helped you get where you are. You need to thank them, and you need to thank them twice. Thank them again. And then the fourth principle that I've broken on occasion, and it was a downfall for me, do not practice the greatest of all evils, hubris. The old Greek word about getting puffed up, thinking that you're better than other people and that you can get by with stuff. Hubris is a horrible, horrible affliction. And I at times in my life, and I talk about this freely in the book, about how I developed the disease of hubris when I thought I was owed something. And then in the number 6 on this list of things to do good for, to be good for lessons in life, develop some sort of a spirituality. I don't care what kind it is, what kind of God you worship, or none at all, but have some sort of spirituality. It will guide you well. And then I always remember this. I learned from the former Attorney General of Oklahoma, Mr. Mike Turpin. He said I want to tell you about 10 two-letter words. 10 10 two-letter words. If it is to be, it is up to me. So I want to thank the Rotary Club for inviting me. I hope I haven't rambled all over the place. And I will always love being Rotary. I know that one of these days, if I ever join a civic club, I know which one it will be. So thank all of you. Thanks to Reagan, thanks to Jim, and thank you for my first venture into Zoom. I hope I didn't blow the thing up. So goodbye and thanks. And now I guess I'll subject myself to questions. I promise you I won't plead the Fifth Amendment, but I might plead ignorance. Thank you.
Questions for Rufus?
I think we have some questions in chat, Valerie. Pamela, I believe, has a question.
Yeah, thank you. Rufus, I'm pretty sure I met you about 20 years ago at some sort of occasion, and it's really an honor to hear you speak again, and thank you so much for being here. You made a comment that really intrigued me. You said that you knew that you and Senator Ervin knew that Watergate had to work, or that you would have to make it work, and I was wondering what you meant by that, and maybe how that was worked out.
Yes, I was making reference to the fact that Senator Ervin and Senator Howard Baker were the chair and the deputy chair of the Senate Watergate Committee, and how they both decided that it had to work, or that it would be that the country would sink. The senator was so gravely concerned about what had happened at the White House that he thought democracy was at a crossroads. And they said by sharing it together and listening to one another and having bipartisanship, that Watergate would come along, and then lo and behold, it did work. But it's one of the few inquiries that I know of in the Congress that's worked in any number of years for a long time, and it's simply because the two leaders decided that it would work. Now, my job with Senator Ervin was to sort of keep the train running, and we'd often talked about this was like directing a huge play. The moving parts were incredible. I've often told people that we received at one time, for some of you younger folks in the club who don't remember Watergate, we went from daylight till dark, and we got fussed at by people for having hearings during the soap opera we knocked off the air. My own little niece, she said, Uncle Rufus, I hate Watergate because it did away with the cartoons. We were getting up to 40,000 pieces of mail and telegrams a year. Notice I said mail and telegrams, not email. It was such a momentous occasion that it enveloped the mind of America, and did work, because for a while there, until we're back into another Watergate today, and I'm not saying that because of this administration, I'm only saying that we're back in another Watergate because huge amounts of money, which I contend is the root of evil in politics. The Citizens United case is one of the worst decisions they've ever handed down by the Supreme Court, to saying anybody, any company, any corporation can give any amount of money they want to, and that corporations are people. Well, when Jim and Reagan and I went to law school, we were taught that corporations are not people. But this decision said that the corporation is a person, and that the corporation could spend anything they want to spend. So I think that has been one of the things that's led us to another Watergate, but the huge influx of money that go into elections.
Rufus, want to thank you so much for being with us today. I'm glad you mentioned one of the things that you had learned was listening to others, because, and you were kind enough to mention my father. So I want to tell you this story, that my father, who was the finest lawyer and gentleman that I've known, went to see you when he was general counsel for Wachovia Corporation, and you were attorney general. And I was brand new in law, and he made the comment to me. He said, "Rufus is a fine attorney general because he listens." Said he listens to you, you can talk with him, you can have a conversation, and he's going to try to do the right thing. I don't know if what you did was favorable or not to his client in that situation, but he felt that you always tried to do the right thing as attorney general. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, that's a high compliment to me, Jim.
Really engaging talk today about Watergate, your experience there and in public service otherwise, and about your book. We really appreciate it. And I'm going to deputize past President Reagan Weaver to present you with the coveted Rotary coffee mug, because you're going to need that coffee mug as you begin to work on your second book. So we're looking forward to that. We just really appreciate your being with us. It's been a great meeting. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it enough that you will consider joining the Rotary Club of Raleigh. And we would certainly love to have you as a member. With that, I think it's time for closing the meeting, as we always do, with the Rotary four-way test. So if you'll join me and repeat along with me. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned?
R-O-T-A-R-Y. That spells Rotary. Very good.
Thank you.
We are adjourned, Rotarians. See you June the 1st.
Thank
Good
you.
service. Thank you.
Great meeting.
Are we
Thank
meeting
Goodbye.
at the Rotary Club on June 1st, Jim?
June 1st, Mark Davis.
Okay.
And Rufus, where can we get a copy of your book? Is it on Amazon?
Amazon, Museum of History, and Quail Corners.
Okay, thank you. And will, if somebody wants an autographed copy, how would they go about getting that?
They would come right down here to 132 South Salisbury, across from Jim's office,
Hey.
Okay.
in the Wells Fargo building, and come up the stairs and let Rufus sign it.
Thank you very much, sir. Great program.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great Memorial Day.
You too. Thank you.
Rufus.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Try it. I don't know. It says that page.